Okay, so today we're going to be talking about React. It's nothing new. Most of you have probably heard this buzzword already. It doesn't exactly tie into what we discussed yesterday, which was mostly just the fundamentals of JavaScript. But you can still follow along quite easily if you understand, the basics of JavaScript, like declaring variables, objects, asynchronous programming in JavaScript. React doesn't exactly use the DOM, so some of those stuff we discussed yesterday does not exactly tie in, and you'll see that a bit later. Okay, I'm still the admin, so I still have to admit people to the call. Okay, so first of all, let's start with why we use React. React is used by the biggest companies in the world. I think I made a list here. So it was made by Facebook as a solution to their rising user base. So the Facebook page actually uses React natively. And all Facebook products, including Instagram and WhatsApp, WhatsApp web use React. Netflix migrated to React recently. Discord uses React, on the web. Dropbox uses React. Major e-commerce platforms such as Lazada and Shopee in Malaysia also migrated their front end to React. So React is fundamentally built for production. It's mature, it's stable, it has a massive community of support. It's regularly maintained. And in a Stack Overflow survey for the past 4 years, it has been voted the most loved front-end framework among front-end developers. So it remains an important industry skill, and everyone from small to large startups are building their front ends with React. So it's an incredibly powerful tool, which we're going to be discussing a bit about today. Today's agenda is why we use React, which I sort of went over, how to get started, how we install, set up, what's the folder structure like. We're going to discuss how state management works in React. Then I'm going to pass it over to Sean, where we're going to go over how to build a very simple dynamic front end with React, so you can get your first React app started today. So let's go over our prerequisites for today, which is the installation of software. So I use VS Code as my primary editor. You're free to choose whichever you wish, but I would recommend VS Code because it's easy for us to debug. There are a few people here who can help you with any technical difficulties you might have. So if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and someone will drop another meet link over there for you to go over, and you can discuss your question with them over there. Okay, so I have a terminal window open in a folder of your choosing. I just made it in my desktop. I just put it here, and I make it here, React.Js. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have, assuming you have npm already. Does anyone here not have Node installed on their computers? Anyone no Node at all? Okay, one person hasn't installed already. Okay, Danny. Okay. So just go over to the Node website. Just type in nodejs.org. Download the LTS. Okay, how to check if you installed? Not just type Node version. You should see something. If it says Node is not defined, which means that you don't have Node installed or it's not properly configured in the system. So everyone go to your terminals now. If you're using a Mac, go to your terminal if you're choosing like iTerm or terminal. If you're using Windows, you can use CMD, or you can use git bash or any terminal and just type Node version. If you see a version there, which means everything is fine, you're okay to continue. If not, just drop it here and Sean will help you. Okay, here's the thing. React is not it's not a runtime environment. It's a package itself. React is a package itself. So when we're going to be starting with React, we are first gonna we're going to be using create React app. So if you have this installed already, find a folder on your computer and open a terminal there. So you could do something like go to your right click and just do services. I'm just gonna do a terminal here. On Windows, you can type there, I think CMD in the taskbar. You can get a terminal in there. Is everything okay so far? Get to a terminal in the folder of your choosing. Okay. Assuming that's okay, now just type npm IG npm install global. Oh, let me type it fully actually so you understand. Install globally, create React app. I already have this installed, I'm reinstalling it. Okay, so you can do this. Just type npm install g create React app. You don't need anything else to run React besides npm. So this will give you a nice boilerplate for you to start up with. Okay. So if any questions, just put it on the chat and Sean will help you. So now you already have the, so create React app is going to be a boilerplate. It's going to generate a boilerplate for us for React app. So let's say, let's create our first React app now. So I'm going to say create React app in my terminal, and I'm going to type my first React app and just enter. And it will take a while because, yeah, it's installing a bunch of packages and setting up the React app for you. So just type this inside your terminal. Yeah, or you can use npx or you can use npm. It's both the same thing. This will take a bit. Don't worry about it. Just put this on the other monitor so I can see this while I'm talking. Yeah, that's better. Actually, people usually say that the React is a bit bloated. It sort of is. Okay, so once it's done, assuming it's done, is anyone still running the command? It'll probably take a while. Just raise your hand or put it in the chat. Anyone still running the command? Or have you guys reached the happy hacking stage already? Okay. This is not a lecture, please react in the chat, guys. Okay, assume that everyone has reached the stage where they see happy hacking. So if you see your folder right now, you will see my first React app sitting right here, which is where your React app is now installed with a full boilerplate. So let's go into VS Code first. So let's cd into the directory, cd, my first React app. People are not familiar with the command line. cd means go into the folder, cd. And now we're inside the folder. We're on default branch master. So let's say we want to go into VS Code. We want to open a VS Code window in this folder. I just type code dot if you have it configured. Or you can just go to VS Code and then file. And you can open a workspace. And you can go to open desktop React.Js and open your app wherever you saved it up. Let's open it. We don't need to write, yes, I trust the authors. Okay, you can do that, or you can open in the window. Okay, how many people have reached here? Y for yes, N for no in the chat. Is everyone inside their VS Code window? Y for yes, N for no. No connection broken. Y for yes. Okay, I did not scroll, sorry. Oh, I was looking at an old chat. Okay. Anna's still running. Okay. I didn't scroll. I was looking at the top. No one was replying, so I thought my computer was. Okay. Don't worry. We'll wait a bit here. Still running. Yeah, I know. Create React app is like very bloated. It installs a lot of dependencies for you. Look at the number of folders it put. So yeah, it's natural. Don't worry. It takes a long time. It happens. Okay. Yeah, a lot of N's here. So I'm gonna wait a bit here. Okay. And for those of you who already have it installed, you can have a look at the folder structure and try to, what's after npx? Okay, just type Have you reached happy hacking? Yavini, have you reached happy hacking here? Do you see this? Or do you want to see the command? Oh, it's still loading. Okay. Sean, can you put the command again? NPX, yeah, there we go. Okay, npx create React app. If you're using a Mac, you can take off npx because it's by default inside the terminal. But if you're not using a Mac, then type npx. So like usually, at the start when they first made React, it was very bloated to set up a React app. So a bunch of the founders of React actually came together and they made this package called Create React App, which would set up all the boilerplate for you, especially people just getting started with React. But the drawback of this is that it comes with a lot of extra files you don't need. I'll explain them in a bit. Okay, now Y for yes and for no. Who's here? Who's at their VS Code window ready to start? Okay, yes, more yeses this time. Nice. Yes. Okay, someone's still running. Okay. Okay, let's start. Don't worry, people, we're not finished yet. It's okay. We're not going to be we're not going to be typing any code yet. Just going over the file structure. So first thing, if this is your first Node project ever, you're probably seeing this funny file called package.json. Okay, let's go over what's inside this file. It's very important for you to do so. So here we have the package.json file in any Node project gives the details about the app. For example, the name of the app, you can call it anything you want. So you can call it, I'm going to call it SID React app. So let's say you're publishing a package later, you can change it here to the name of your application, what version you're on, where the repository is private. And here we get dependencies. Okay, in a Node project, for the project to run, you need other dependencies, other packages that are required for your project to start up. So that is why these dependencies are listed. So let's say you publish your project on the web and someone else installs it, they know what packages to install to run it on their computers. That's the dependencies. Then there's scripts. There's start script, build, test, and eject. Don't ever type eject. Don't ever type eject inside your terminal. Don't type npm eject. It will really screw up your folder structure. If you're ambitious, maybe later you can go create a new React app and try what eject does. But yeah, don't do that. The two will be using a start and build. Start is for the development build. Let's actually type in your folder here, in the folder of the app, just type npm start. React app, see. Let's give it a few seconds. It will start a development server. And it's on this computer. Let me just copy it. Okay, so if you type this, then you would be able to say compiled successfully. You can now view SID React app in the browser. And you should be able to see the screen. If you've come this far, which means that React is set up successfully on your system. Y for yes, and for no. Error, wherever, whichever. What's the name of the error? Sean, can you help him out? Oh, npx, okay. Okay, Sean will help you. Okay, so if you see this nice spinning thing here, React is set up, we're good to go. Now let's actually type some code. It's running on port 3000, so you can open it here and view it on your browser. npm error. Okay, Sean will help you there. Okay, package.json and yes, lint. Okay, linting is to talk about how clean your code is. For example, let's say you're using tabs instead of spaces. Lint cares about all that. Browser list is like what version of each browser you're running it on, the development build. So don't worry about this. README is for your, this is basically like the instructions that the package gives you to see how to build it and test it out. And yarn lock, okay, yeah, don't touch yarn lock. Git ignore is stuff like when you push to Git, these are the files that should not be included in the push. So for example, an env file with all your API keys and secrets should not be pushed onto your GitHub. So you can put that inside here. And by default, the node modules folder which contains all the packages that React requires to run. It's all positioned inside node modules. And this is by default excluded from any GitHub pushes. So as you can see, it's so bloated. There's so much stuff that's here you don't need. Okay, now let's go into the source code. How to start your React? Okay, npm start, npm run start, yeah. In that folder in which your project is initialized. Okay, so let's go into the source code, app.js. So let me just open keep this left and right. So let me put this on the right and VS Code on the left. You can do the same. So this is the file that this is reading from. Okay, now go ahead and change learn React to your name. I'm going to change this to just save it, just save it. It will automatically refresh the browser without you having to refresh the page. Yeah, so you can change something else. Instead of edit, it can be add, and it will automatically refresh the page. And yes, you have now you are now running your first React application. So if you come to this far and you can edit, and then you can see the thing refreshing, Y for yes, N for no. Okay, nice. Yes, okay. Someone's running, and Daniel was excited. Okay. Okay, guys, let's go on. Now let's clear all the junk. We don't need this anymore. This is just the boilerplate that they gave us. Clear the junk. So until we just want to have the div here. That's it. Clear everything. Now an empty screen to show up. We don't have anything inside. npx. Why is npx getting nothing up? Okay. Something might be stuck. Maybe stop the installation, quit the window, and then retry it. npx. Now, if you're in the app div, then just type something here. You would see, your name here. Let's also go to the CSS file and clear all this junk because we don't need this. This is just CSS that that Create React app gives us. We don't need this anymore. Okay, so we just have a pure, like a normal HTML page, and we can type HTML inside React. Something stuck. Okay. So so right now this may look a bit like HTML, right? You can literally type HTML inside here, and everything will be fine. So this right here is not actually HTML. We call this something called JSX. JSX is React's version of HTML to render any HTML content on the page. And as you'll see in a bit, JSX can do some pretty cool stuff like rendering dynamic content. So we're assuming we can start typing inside here. We have an empty screen. Okay. So this will be your launchpad for whatever HTML you want to type inside your React app, and it will be rendered automatically. So inside here, you can interact with the page just like you're interacting with the HTML page. Let's go ahead and start talking about state first. The state is the most important thing in React. Okay, let's just, I want you to type const number, set number, okay, is equal to, oh yeah, see, I installed GitHub Copilot today, so it's giving me the AI thing. Let's, yeah, oh yeah, see, it's my first time trying it actually. What do I type? Tab, nice, okay. And that's the import use state. Wait, import from React, yeah, that also is done for me. Use state. Just copy this first, I'll explain how it works in a bit. So we have use state and number and set number. Yeah, just sign up a technical preview. You'll get access to the one. Okay, now we have number and set number and use state. So use state is a native function given in React for us to store state in a function. I'll explain what state does. So just go ahead here and open your curly brackets and type number. Set curly brackets number. You'll see a 0 right there. Let's say you remove the curly brackets, it will treat this like text. It won't treat it like a variable. If you want to access your variable names inside your JSX, or in this case, I mean your HTML type of thing, you just have to wrap it inside curly braces, and then you will get you can actually call variable names inside your code. So I could even set a state called const name and set name, and oh yeah, nice, that's it for you. Use state is empty, and I give it my actual name. And I could do something cool, right? Let's change this to my name is, and open up the curly braces and type in name. Oh, the Copilot is so cool. It even gave me the okay, my name is this, and then see, it renders automatically. So the variable name that's stored in my state can be accessed by my HTML, and I can print it on my browser. So this is the first part of building dynamic web pages. But the state is way more than just like a static variable that never changes. Let's actually go over how we can change the state. So let's put a button here. Okay, remove the name, and let's put a button here. So button and an HTML button, and I'm gonna say click me. When that is done, okay, click me. There's a nice button here. Click me. Yeah. Go. Wait, don't do it now. Go after the workshop today. Go and install GitHub Copilot. It's so cool. Okay, so now we have a button called click me. Right now it doesn't do anything because we haven't given any functionality yet. But now we're gonna see how to update the state in the component. So you can see number and set number here. Number is the variable in which the initial state, which is 0, is stored. Set number is the function that React gives us to modify the state. So I can do something like set the number inside here. So I could do an on click. If this button is clicked, okay, I write a function. Every time I'm writing JavaScript inside HTML, I have to put it inside a curly brackets. Don't forget that. I write an anonymous function here, like the one Daniel was talking about yesterday. Anonymous function, and I would say set number, and I'm going to say number plus 1. And I also print the number here so we can actually see it increment. Okay. Let me put a like that. Okay, so we can, it's quite small, huh? Let's put this center later. Okay, the recording will go up tonight as soon as the workshop is done. Don't worry about that. Don't worry, just watch, Wait again, follow along. Okay, so now we get the button here and we get a number here. So now we're going to do something really cool. We're going to update this number by clicking the button. See, so fast and so cool. What happens underneath the system right here? So every time the button is clicked, it increments the state. The state is what the state of the native variables of the component. So name and number are states that are held by this component called app. And when we click this button, it updates the state using the function that they give us. So the first one returned is the state variable, and the second one is a function to update this variable. Okay, we can even do the same for name. So for example, do an input field even. I'll show that later, it's fine. So click me, and then you can see the thing. If you want to do an increment, decrement, let's try that also. So let's do an increment button. And let's do another button called decrement. Okay, and on click again. On click. Write a function. And do a set number. But this time number minus 1. And the decrement button. So we have an increment button, decrement button, and as you can see, the page reloaded quite fast. Decrement will decrease it, increment will increase it. Okay. How many of you are still with me here? Anyone lost? Anyone? Any issues? Yes. A white for yes, and for no. An increment, decrement. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Nice. But the React is way more than just like a single component, right? We want to be able to do a lot of complex logic. For example, let me open my Twitter, and I want to show you how the page is. So for example, on this Twitter page right here, oh god, don't look at the tweets. Okay, yeah, it's a bit neutral. Okay, so we have a bunch of we have a bunch of different components on the page. A lot of things are going on this page. We have a search bar right here. We have a widget on the side here. We have a nav bar on the side, a button here, a button here. So there's so many components on this page. Yeah, so many components on this page. Each tweet itself is a component. So React is fundamentally made of components. Every single piece of this page, all the way down to HTML, is a component on its own. So React is fully component driven. Let's actually have an example of that. Let's create a new React component. Each function is a component. Each function is a component. And let's create a new component called number. Let's actually create a component called number. Let's put it up here. So we've just created another React component above app. And let's actually return something inside this component. So I could say something like a div here. This is my number. And I could call it inside here. So we'll remove everything. Move the buttons. Comment it out. And then instead of just putting a number, I can print the number here using the component. Number. You can see the autocorrect there. So another component in React is called exactly like the a div tag. So just like HTML tag. So if you hover over it, you can see it's a JSX element. So this is a React component. But this is not so. What's the big deal? You know, I mean, we want to be able to pass data inside this component and show something instead of just showing something static. And this is where we can pass data inside a component, and those are called props. New keyword, props. We pass data inside a component, and this data that we pass in, we call each one a prop. So I'm going to type in a prop here. So my number, I'm going to pass in data, and I'm going to say I'm going to call it 20 or something. Okay. Then, so how do we access this number we just passed in? How do we access my number inside this component? We pass in props here. By default, any data we pass in will go to an object in the component. So a props. Then we just need to say a props an object right away. We can print it out if you want. So this is my number, and as I said, this you can just print it out and no props dot my number. So this is my number 20. So we've just passed in data from the top level component into a child component. And we can actually include this inside the state to do something even cooler. So let's say we have two buttons here, put it back, put the two buttons back, save, then we have increment. So instead of just printing the number inside this component, we can pass the state down the tree. Instead of passing a static number, I'm going to pass in the number variable itself. So this number 17, increment, decrement. So what's happening is React is taking the variable every time I update it, passing it inside its own number component, another component, and updating the state there. So we can pass state down the tree. And if number chooses to call another component on its own, it can also choose to do that. So right here, we're passing my number inside the number component, and the state is passed through. Okay, who's lost? Who's lost? Y for yes, N for no. Sean Bond lost. Please, I want to see out of N, not S. Not S. Okay. Lost. Okay. Yeah, Mavinda, go ahead. What's the confusion now? Still stuck at NPX. Okay. Don't worry about that. Okay. Let's go ahead. So what we've learned so far. We've learned how HTML is just as easy inside React as it is in pure HTML. We've learned how state works and how to update the state using the useState function. We've learned how to call another component, how to make a component and pass it and call it from another component. We've learned how to pass data inside components. And we've also learned about event handlers like onClick. Now, before I pass it to Sean to go over a more, like a full use case of this entire thing, I want to talk about one more thing. This is called the use effect. Let's type in use effect. I will explain this also. So we can see, right, React has like all this funny, words called use this, use that. These are what we call hooks. And what hooks do is that they give you some sort of functionality. The use state, for example, just like the name suggests, it allows you to use a state variable inside a function. The use effect, I will demonstrate in a bit. Let's say we type in here console log out the console. This component has been rendered. And the second parameter, the use state. So the first parameter is going to be a function. And the second one is just going to be an empty array for now. So I'll explain this. Use effect allows us to run a sort of function every time something changes inside a component. So the first parameter, the use effect, is actually a callback function. So this function is going to be run. And the second one is the variables that were triggered as run. For example, let's say I type in a number. This function right here, this console log, will run every time the variable number has changed. If I leave it empty, if I leave this array empty, this particular function will only run the first time the component has started. So let's say I open my console, console, inspect, console, and refresh the page. You can see this component has been rendered. So the first time the component boots up and the page loads, this thing will run. So can anyone tell me why we need this type of logic? Why is this type of logic important, like running some kind of thing when the component boots up? For example, let's say we want to get data from somewhere else. Yeah, fetch data from someone else. Or for example, when Twitter loads their page, let's go back to Twitter. Yeah, it's like an onward. It's an onward, exactly. Yes. I should really make a new account to show you this actually. Okay, but here's the thing. When Twitter loads up the page, it's loading up a lot of data from their servers, and it needs to show this on the page, right? It needs to fetch it from somewhere before loading the page. If not, the data will come from nowhere. So we run this use effect to fetch data from somewhere and set the state so we have something to show. Yeah. So we can do more fancy stuff like calling an API here, calling a backend and getting some data and setting inside a state. So I could do something like use effect, and I could do a set state, not set state, sorry, set name, and I could say set name is John. Even though my component initializes with the name without, when the component runs, next one right here. Sorry, my name is set a name here. So by default, when the component runs, it's going to be without, right, when the thing boots up. But using the effect, I'm going to set this to something else. So before I even see anything on the page, it's all going on in the background, and it's setting to the to the John. This is more useful. We're calling an API or something, and then we can set the data on the page before we show something at all. So now let's actually replace this empty array with something more useful. For example, let's say let's change the dependency list to number, and let's remove this dumb thing. I would do something like console log number has changed to, and I would print the new number. Okay, so every time the number changes, we're going to see something here. So everything set, increment. So every time this variable is being updated, this function is being called. So let's say I empty this thing, empty number from here. and I click, nothing's going to happen because this callback is only called the first time the component works. But if I put a dependency here, this particular callback function, this thing will run every time this variable is updated, whether increase or decrease, something happens to this variable, this function is going to run. So I'm going to increment, decrement, and then you can see the stuff logging the console. So you can actually build a reactive application. That's why React gets the name. It's because it's reactive. You can write your own hooks to react to state changes or react to something happening. In this case, we're reacting to this particular variable number changing. It can react to, yeah, you can dynamically render something on the page using use effect. For example, let's comment this out, and I'm going to say, put an input box here, input box, and then I'm going to put an on change for the same callback function, and it's passing the event variable. So I'm going to say const search query, set search query. This is a very common design pattern in React. I want yes, the co-prioritize it. Okay, so then we just need to set search query e.target.value. So every time every time I type something here, it'll set the state. It'll set the top level state. I can actually write my own hook here to react to every time the search field changes. So I can do something like console.log. The new search query is, and I could type here search query. So let's say I type something here, then you can see this use effect running every time I'm typing something inside here. This is not very useful, but let's say we want to call some kind of API or show something on the page based on what is based on what I type inside here. Then React will re-render that part of the page depending on what I type. For example, let's say we want to I don't know, take two numbers. Let's do something simple. Let's say another one for input change. Another number. Let's call the number, I guess, 0. Const number 2. Set number 2. And use state is 0. Okay, so two variables here, and let's fix the set number 1 and set number 2. Now such query doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so we have two numbers here. Let's make a button called add. Let's put a button here, and we're going to call it add. Oh no, actually, let's not do add, let's do dynamically. And we can print the result here. So let's do something like number, my number. Let's call the component number, my number is equal to search result. And let's actually make a new variable for search result. Const search result, set search result, use state, and I'm gonna put this as 0. So let's comment this out. We don't need this anymore. Go somewhere else. Okay, so we have a clean slate here. So what we have two inputs, and we have the search result here. This is my total. Okay. So now what we're going to do is every time someone types something inside here, we're going to update the total. we're going to do that using use effect. So every time if either number one or number two changes, we want to run this function. So we want to do set search result as number one plus number two. Okay. So every time either one of these variable changes, this function is going to be called. Whether I change this input field or this input field, the function is going to be called. As I do one here. Oh yeah, this is a sorry. We need to set a type as number. What I'll do. Wait on. This is a pass int. There's number, right? Sorry about this. Okay, it's reading like a string. That's why. Wait, let's just pass int. We just do a pass int. Pass int takes a string and converts it to number. You can actually get a proper addition instead of just a string addition. Or if we do something like 1 and 2, we get number 2 to target the value. That is not doing what I expected to do. Yeah. Oh, every time I reset the state, it changes. Okay, anyway. So every time I'm running one of this, something's happening. But every time I'm changing it back to 0, it becomes null. Okay. Yeah, so every time I change one of this use effect is running. Use put. Oh crap, sorry. Yes, that's why. But still it's not. Oh yeah, okay, works now. So every time I change one of this, it becomes it updates the state. What's the error? Okay, so what's happening here is every time I'm setting the state, I'm updating the variable, this use effect is being called and it's updating the total it's showing. Okay. So we have two inputs and we have one use effect running. Every time one of these inputs changes, this updates the field. So let's say I change this to 20, becomes 25. I say change this to, I don't know, 10, becomes 13. So every time I'm changing one of this, the use effect is running. So use effect is a very fundamental concept. You'll be using this a lot in almost every component you write. You will be using a use effect somewhere to make it dynamic, the page. And one more thing, the last thing is, all your code is not going to be on one page. This number component, for example, it's probably going to be in a different file. And what you can probably do is just make a new file in source, new file, and I'm going to call it number.js. In React, we usually name everything in capital letters. The first one's always capital because to signify a component. And all we need to do is just go from okay, and copy over. Let's copy over this number component, put it inside number.js, and just do an export default number. If you want to import it inside here, we just need to do an import. So import number from / and you see number, and no error should come. This allows you to make your code modular. Another concept, modularity. Modular. So you can split your code into multiple files, and then you can call a component from here. So a big React project usually has a components folder, and every single component has its own folder inside that folder. And then the app component is usually kept quite clean. You can just call the other components from the app component. Okay, who has any questions until now? It might be a bit confusing when it comes to state and use effect. Anyone have any questions? Y for yes, N for no. Y we have a question, and N for no questions. No questions. Okay, no questions. Any no questions? Okay, because use effect is actually a pretty confusing concept actually, because like uh, it's a bit tricky to understand when it runs and why we even use it. But we will show that in a bit. Can you repeat the word number? Okay, got it. So if you copy the number component inside a different file, just make a file called number.js. Copy your function inside there, function number props, and you just put an export default number. Export default means like you're exporting this thing out of this file. So someone else who imports this file can import your component also. Then app.js, just do an import number from /number. Then you can get the component from here. If you look at more industry standard source code, you won't see, I mean, you might see functions, but there's another way of writing this actually. As Daniel was talking about yesterday, we can also write this as an ES6 function. What's an ES6 function? So ES6 functions, we start with const. So const number is equal to props. See, Copilot does it again. Hey, Copilot, can help me? There. And then it will. So then it just does the same thing as a normal function. Just copy the return here. And let's say you remove the function, and you do it as a const number, like an anonymous ES6 function. Everything should still be the same. So, yeah. Okay, does everyone have this part working so far? You guys understand how the state works, how use effect works, how to write components, how to import components? Okay, what do you do after when I go to React? Okay, wipe the entire, I think Sean will tell you, just wipe the entire div, get an empty screen. Just clear everything. And I'll give you the source code in a bit for this. Yeah, we'll also wipe it later. Okay, that pretty much sums up the basics of how React manages the state and the number.js. Okay. Yeah, if you're wondering what props is, every time you're passing something inside your, let's put this left and right. Every time you're passing some data inside the component, you can access this to an object. So let's do a use effect actually. And let's actually print out the props. So when the component first loads, I want this thing to print out the props. So let's go back to our thing and then just type page console, and we can see the object right here. So we can see the object, my number 233. So let's say you pass another prop. So I'm gonna call this a, I don't know, rounding. So I'm gonna say 2 decimal places, the number 2. And I refresh the page again. Now I would get 2 props inside here, my number and rounding. So whatever I pass into this component, I can access it to the props and destructure it using props dot. So it'd be the props dot, and I can access whatever I pass into here. You can set a thing called prop types where you can access, where you can actually set in a quite a strict way what type of props that this component expects. It's very good for documentation. You can also do that. I'm going to pass it to Sean from now. He's going to take you through a very simple React app, where we're applying a bunch of concepts that we've learned. Does anyone have any questions before we continue? Anything you want me to show, repeat again? Or if you're wondering what the public folder is, this is the index.html file, where you can set the title of the app. So you change this to, I don't know, put your name here, I guess. Then you can see the tab, the name of the tab will change also. HTML. Okay, considering that there are no more questions, I'll pass it to Sean, and yeah, just let me know any questions in the comments or in the chat there. I'll stop sharing.
All right. Good evening, guys. My name is Sean. Thanks, Siddha, for the introduction of React. And from now on, I'll be your learning partner for the rest of the React lecture. And for the next few hours, we'll be diving into React and we'll be using some React fundamentals like what's introduced just now, like use effect or use states, to build a simple React app. So I'm going to show you what we're going to build today. Can you guys see my screen? Y for yes. And for no. Okay, nice. Okay. So this is demo of what we'll be building today. So it's a simple recipe app where you have an input field here and you can filter it through. Let's say we want to only have, we want to find pepperoni pizza. So we'll type pepperoni. See, what's the pizza? Margheriti pizza will be gone. And if you want Margheriti, we'll filter out the components here. And along building this simple app, we'll cover some fundamentals of JavaScript also. So maybe some array methods, array and object destructuring and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's open your VS Code. I'm sure you already opened it, or your favorite text editor. Start building our app. But the first thing I would like you to do is so if you see the Google Meet chat, we have two paste bin links. So what I want you to do is go to the link and open app.js and app.css, wipe the whole file, both this file, replace what is inside the paste bin. I mean, take the content inside paste bin and replace on your file. That way, we can get to this app, and we'll have the styles pre-configured. So I'll give like a minute or two. Press Y if you are done with it. And if you have any problem accessing the paste bin, then press N. All right, manager. We'll wait for a bit. Do you have any Beautify extension for React? If you're looking for the brackets, right? So go to extension, go to bracket colorizer. Wait, oh, spelled it wrong. A bracket pair colorizer, use the second version of it. And then make it prettier for the brackets. Okay, manager is done. Okay. So this will be the boilerplate of what we'll be using today. So basically, we are importing the CSS file to make the interface a bit better, look a bit better, and we have a use state, and so we have the output of it, which is returning in JSX element. And here we are using use state to dynamically render the name. So if I change it to so what you will see, the change a lot. So it's the same that what Siddharth has introduced us now. But I would like to take this a little bit further with use state, because it's quite confusing. At least for me, it's quite confusing that when I first touched React, use state is such a pattern where I can't even understand it. So be going a little bit deeper inside use state. Give you I think it's important to actually understand it. So if you're using DSC, hover over use state, okay, you see that this is a string. It's a string type, and then here you see it's an array. So what's the definition of use state? So use state is a hook that allows you to have state variables in functional components. So it only will apply in functional components and not class components. And then it will return a variable, and also it will return an array where the first element is the state variable itself, and the second element is a function to actually update the value. So this is the way to prove it. So let me try use state. Okay, then let's console log what is actually a use state is. So here, you see it's an array, and this is actually the value of the state you're passing in as the initial variable here. And here, this is the function where you can update the value to the state, right? So I can actually do this in state. So if I type in state try, and then we access the first element of the array, this will actually be try, and it will be the variable in state. And state try second element is the function equivalent to set name here, but it's the function that I previously said just now. It will update the value. So let's just try this. Let set try goes to this, and then let try go to this, and then in a use effect component, we'll give set try, and then we'll dynamically set the variable. So we'll set try number 2, and it's giving me this is a cool feature in DSC that will tell you that basically use effect is not defined yet. So everything in React app in React app, you have to actually import it. And let's use another use effect to listen to whether the changes on the state of the tries. So if you do this, .log. As Siddharth just introduced just now, this one, the use effect, what it will do is this is a dependency passing. So wherever the value has changed, it will run the callback. So console.log tries will be the callback. So let's see. See, I don't even have to reload it, because if you save and then you reload. So if you see 17, it says it initially is try, and then afterwards, after the use effect has run, we are using the set try, and then we dynamically change the variable of it, and then we console.log the updated value here. So this is like the gist of it on how use state actually works deep down. But standard like industry level will be this. And let me explain like what this is. This is actually called array restructuring. Let me give you like a example. So if you have an array, let's say 1 and 2. Instead of having this and then do this, do array, num array, and then console.log num array, and then
Sean, can you increase your font size? There's a command plus.
Oh, sorry. I don't know.
Go a bit more actually.
please. Is it better now?
Yeah, it should be okay, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so the traditional way of accessing elements in an array, if you're giving the index of it. So if I want to in console.log 1, actually give in 0 because this is 0 and then this is 1, the index of it. And if I want to console.log 2, I'll be giving this console.log, and you see yes 2. So there's a better way to actually use this. It's called array destructuring, as I said just now. So what you will do, you say this, and then the number 1 will be this, number 2 will be this. This makes the whole this makes it actually more readable for developers to understand, and it also saves you a couple of lines. So this is exactly what is here. So useState is as previously discussed. UseState is returning an array, which the first element is the value itself, and then the second one is the function to update it. So we are using the same concept here, where we put the name. So the name will be the string, and then set name will be the function to update the state. So that's the gist of it with how useState works behind the scenes. Any questions? 5 for yes and for no. All right. So so we'll be going through. We'll be starting to actually build the app right now. So you can use useState in a lot of ways. So this is an example of using useState to store an array. This is an array, and you can store it inside a state. You can even store numbers too. So if you hover it, type this is number, and you hover this array. Let's say this is array. So we can directly access the variables, and then we can use it inside our React app. So the next thing we would like to add into the app is actually, we'll add this you have search for and then the input. So first thing we would like to add is the we need a state to actually control the variables. I mean the you have search for the values here. So once you type, and then we'll use some React magic, not React magic, but JavaScript magic, and then assign it to state, and then we'll print out this dynamically. So every time you type, changes the variable. So for that to happen, we need a state. Okay. This is a string state where we'll be using later. So now we'll build it to none first, and then how to actually use it, we need a p tag. If you're confused, I'm just copying some code from my pre-built one. So but the code afterwards will be open source, not open source, but will be zip into, and then give your, I think it will be a format into a pastebin, or we could just zip the whole file and then put it on Google Drive. So this is again how you could use variables inside JSX. So now I'm using the variable search query, and then the initial value is none. So we are expecting if we see the app, we'll see you have searched for none. So let's try. Yep, let's search for none. So now that this is done, we need to have an input where we'll dynamically change the variable of such query. So again, I'm going to copy some code because I'm lazy to write it out. But don't worry, I will explain this. So this is an input this is an input tag, and same as HTML. We're giving a placeholder class. Be aware that in React, you can't just say class like in normal HTML. You have to say class name because this is actually the recommended way to invoke class name inside a JS text. So this is actually just make the input field a little bit looks a little bit better. What's interesting is this. So Daniel, I think yesterday covers about a little bit on the DOM element kind of thing. So one of which is on change. So we could utilize this to get the E. E is the E is the event of it. So we are taking the event of input, and then inside E is a large object where you could essentially find the value of your input. So whatever you type, let me do the console log here. Let me show you E first. So so you see this really large object, but what we really want is the value of it, and then we set the state, and then we set the value to the state. So the way to actually use extract the value is to use e.target.value. So try this. See, it's quite cool. You actually console logging, and then it fires every time if there's a change on the input field. So we could utilize this to get value and then set it to the state. So this is how you do it. Remember the set search query here. So you can utilize this. Use this, and then whatever you pass inside will be the value that will be updated to the state itself. So try e.target.value. And there's this one thing that I would like to do because that afterwards the search query variable will be used to filter the components as so. So I would like to actually standardize all the words. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the value of it, whether you are typing in capital letter or what. I'll force it to change into convert the string into lowercase. So most of the time, JavaScript methods are self-explanatory by the name. So if you want to make it to lowercase, simply type to lowercase. Oh shit, sorry. To lowercase, and this is a function. Right, it will take the value. So this e.target.value represents what you type on your input field. Then it will convert that into lowercase, and then set search query will take the value, set it to the state. So right now, when this is done, we should be seeing when we type the whatever we type here, we'll be seeing it change over here because dynamic rendering by React. So let's try that. Right. So every time there's a change on the input field, we are setting the state, and then React reacts to the change of the state, and then it will re-render the page. So now that this is done, all left to do is to actually show the recipe out, but we don't want to actually just show out all the recipe here. We want to filter it. So as I said just now, most of the time, JavaScript methods are self-explanatory by the name itself. So what we'll do before that, I'd like to introduce like a feature ES6 brings in. It's called code block. So you can actually open this, and then you can do a lot of functions here. So for now, for this particular use case, we're actually gonna map this. It's not map, but loop this, and then based on what we get in the value, dynamically render a component to show all the recipe. So what we'll do is recipes. So recipes refer to this, so we can easily use this. And so now that you want to actually like loop it, and then you want to use it on every iteration, right? So there's a method called .map. .map method calls the provided function once for each element in an array. So if this is the first iteration, the second iteration, each of them will run the function you provided here. So let's try speed.map, and here what we actually want is you can see here we need to provide a callback function. So what we'll do is we'll use a function, but this time I'm going to use arrow function. So it's also, we can do this, and then this happens every iteration of the array when it loops. So essentially what you're going to do is let me give you a simple example first. So basically I want to map this and then show every recipe's name. So we use recipe.name. I always spell wrong recipe. Oh yeah, sorry. In order to use JavaScript variables, we need code blocks. So like that, and then let's see. Is there nothing? Oh yeah, sorry. Because this is a function, so we need to actually return something. So have to define return, and then you return whatever JSX is in here. Control save, and then yep, here. So as on every iteration, you can treat the map as a for loop, and in every iteration you run a function where you can return something from it. That's called a callback. So on top of this, what we actually want to do is actually we want to compare what you have typed in the input field, and then dynamically filter the recipes that will only show what you have typed here is actually equal to what the name is. So we'll be using another method because we want to actually filter the recipe. So we could use a function called filter. And what filter essentially means is that the filter method creates an array, another new array, with all the array elements you provided with recipes that passes a test. And a test is a function. The function will be whatever you define in here, in the curly brackets. So what you're going to do is we have to do the arrow function again. And then now here is where we want to actually see whether the recipe name is equivalent on what you typed here on the input. So what you will do is recipe, and then want to access the recipe name. So it's an object. So recipe.name. And also here we are using dot lowercase. So that is the reason I want to standardize it, because if you have capital letters, and then you might miss a lot of when margarita pizza, and you just type M with no capital letters, then it will miss it already. So it's a good practice to actually lowercase all this, and then we compare it here. So to lowercase, same thing. And then here is what gets interesting. So to lowercase, then we need to compare whether that the recipe name is equivalent to what you have typed here, right? So we have the value inside the state here, so we must utilize it here. So there's another function that JavaScript provides called .includes. The include methods return a true statement if a string contains a specific string. So the specific string will be what will be the string you provided in here. See, includes such string. You can even put position here, but we are not going to do that. And you can see that the output will be a boolean, whether it will be a false or whether it will be a true. So .includes. So what we're gonna compare is the search query, right? So give the variable here, and then this is a function where it will return either true or false. So filter essentially works like it's like it also map the recipe object, I mean the array, but on every iteration you check that whether the function provided, where is the test, is actually true or false. If this function returns a false statement, then the current iteration element will be stripped off in the new array. So right now here we have a new array already. So that will be the filtered array. So what are we going to do is actually map it. Since we want to loop it, and then we need a function to actually render something, just like what we did just now. So recipe. Index is optional, but index is like good practice, and then later you will give a key. I'll explain that later. But here you can do a lot of fancy stuff. So you can do the same, return, and you can put p tag, and then can say code blocks, and then recipe .name. So now this is a actual working function for you to filter based on user inputs. So let's try that first. Yeah. So whatever you type, and then it will return whatever that is there. So the reason it didn't work is because it's a none. So the initial state of this is none. On initial render, the variable of the state of search query, the variable is actually none. So if you compare it to the recipe name, nothing is going to come. So let's put it back to empty. So you see in the first, So if I want pepperoni, we type this, and then if I want margarita, this. Okay, so we actually we'll actually populate this with all the data inside. So give me a second. Just going to copy something that will give you a it'll give you a whole card representing the name, ingredients, and then the cooking time. So this is object.keys. This is the same as what Daniel covered yesterday. And then this is where you could use index. So if I run this, right, we actually get an error. Not error, but warning. It will say each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So this is actually only on React, but this errors only happen on React because keys help React identify which item inside the list have changes in terms of added, remove, or reorder, and you have to give a unique you have to bind a unique ID inside the parent component here to let React further optimize the code lah. So what we could do here, give the key and give in the index. The index essentially means because we are mapping. So the first iteration index will be 0, same as a while loop lah. So the first iteration will be 0, second iteration will be 1. So that sorry. So go back here, there, see, this is all the components being rendered out. It's exactly the same here as previous code. So if you go and give a input and a filter, will work. So this is cool, but there's another way that you can make this look more cooler. But yeah, it's called modularizing your code, and just now Sid actually talked about it already. So essentially, in React, it's like a component-based kind of thing. So everything you can treat it as a component, and then you can use it again and again and again if you put it in a separate file rather than cluttering app.js here. So before I proceed, if there are any questions? Sorry, accidentally left. Okay, is there any question? Yes, Y for yes and for no. All right. So now we'll further optimize this code, and I'll show you how to actually modularize. How do you modularize code in React? So go to your file structure, and you can go to your source folder and then click the second button here, and it will create a new folder, and then you can rename it to whatever you want. The best way to go for with the naming is called components lah. It does not actually matter like what you use, but components is like the standard way you would name things. So inside components, you have the component file. So right now, I'm going to create recipe.js file, which is the component to represent this, so we can use it over and over again. So there's a little trick here you can actually use. So if you are using, I guess VS Code also have this built in. If you want a functional component, you can directly type RAFCE and then press tab. There you have the whole React boilerplate here for you to start with. Oh, you need a React extension, yeah, sorry. But it doesn't matter, you can actually just manually type it out. Doesn't matter, just that it's a faster way to write things. So right now, what we are looking for is actually modularizing this code. So we're gonna port this code into here so that we can actually use this over and over and over again. So right now I don't have the key. And to use the component, we have to import it. So import components. So if you want to import a file that is underneath a folder, you have to go to right now we are in the parent. I mean, we are in the source directory. So we want to go into component, and then we want to go into recipe.js. So the way to go about this is actually put /, and VS Code actually gives you a list of autocomplete of the file structure, components, and then give a slash, then use your recipe. So this is under component. You can actually hover it, and then you'll see. Oh yeah, we need to specify a name here. So recipe tab. Okay, we need a form. Forgot it. So if you're importing a file, you need to specify import, and then you this name is optional. You can put it whatever you want, and better be relevant to what you're doing here. So import this from the file. So we're exporting this, so we can actually use this as a component. So the way to use this, declaring like this. Where you can use the component here, and then you can pass in a lot of props here. So the props that we are going to pass in is actually the name, the ingredients, and the cooking time, right? So we can actually pass in the props here. So if I do recipe, and on here, props to catch it, place all of this to props. You see, convert, identify, now to object. Oh yeah, sorry, I did this wrong. So the way to actually do is you have to give it name. You have to actually pass in a lot of props rather than just passing the recipe itself. So do recipe.name, and then what else you want to pass in? The ingredients. Recipe.ingredients, and then you need to pass in the actually nothing else but cooking time. Yeah, but we don't actually have cooking time, but okay, we just remove this for now, and then you see renders just like what you see on here just now. But just we are using another component to actually render it, and then passing the data as a prop, and dynamically render the component here. So just now I talk about oh, before I continue, is there any question? All right. So yes for yeah, yes for Y, no for, and for no. All right. So just now I covered a little bit about array destructuring, right? So there's another thing that is really popular in ES6, is actually called object destructuring. So essentially what here is what we are passing here as Siddharth just now mentioned about this. So if you console.log the props, there will be an object. So this is a really good use cases on how to use object structure. So the way to go about this is to do this similar to actually what you do with array structuring, but if you're doing object structuring, you actually put in curly brackets rather than this. So you have to put in curly brackets equals to props. So that way we can just use it as a normal variable here, and then we actually do not need to use props.name anymore. So we could just use the variable as name because we have properly destructured it already. And props like ingredient, you can just get away with using ingredients because structuring is same. So nothing breaks. And this is actually good, but there's another way that you can actually just make the object destructuring on here itself. So this is actually the props. So you could actually just destructure it here. So what you do, you could just do this, and it will work as well. So same thing. And yeah, I think that's all to actually code this recipe app. Is there any question to ask? Yeah, I actually don't think there's anything I can add. Okay, so if there's no any other question, I guess I'll pass it back to Siddharth to end the session.
Okay, so I just want to go over a few resources that you guys can have a look at before tomorrow. Just keep it short. Share my screen.
Yeah.
If you go to the React.Js official docs over here, hear me right? Okay. And then you take the tutorial. This is actually a fantastic a tic-tac-toe game that you can build, and then they'll teach you how to do it. So since a lot of the concepts like the use state and the on click and a lot of the stuff has been covered already, you can actually try this out. This is using class-based components, which we haven't covered today, but the concept works the same and you'll be exposed to it. Or you can try out any tic-tac-toe game using a functional component in React. So just try it out. Go to the React documentation and try it out. Also, you can read this article that talks about the virtual DOM. Read the article about JavaScript array methods, and also read why we use class-based components and what's the difference in functional components. Read this here, and try this out before, if you have time before tomorrow. The docs are actually fantastic here. You guys can check it out. For any JavaScript related things, you guys can check out the MDN docs. Let me just find that for you. You guys can read the MDN docs for React. And let me find another one. Yeah, these concepts will be enough to cover you till tomorrow. Actually, React has a lot of more advanced routing and all the stuff we will have to get used to. But for now, The core concepts are basically just state management, how to use a use effect, how to arrange your components, how to update state, and how to build dynamic pages using React. So you guys can check out a few of these cheat sheets and tutorials online and see how much you understand based on this. Tomorrow we'll be covering Node.js, which is totally different because React is on the front end. Tomorrow we're going to be building a backend, and the day after we're going to be talking about the database. And on the last day, we're going to be bringing and connecting everything together to use the front end as React, the back end as Node, and the database as Postgres. After which, you will really see how an entire application comes together using this particular stack. So currently it's 9:40. We will stay back for any questions. If you guys have any questions, you got an error somewhere, want to ask us anything, we'll stay back. But other than that, yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. We will be posting the code. Don't worry, I'll put it on the Discord server later. I'll just make the repository public. So all the code that you saw today will be on a GitHub repository, so you can try it out and tweak and play with it. So don't worry about that. And yes, hope to see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for Node.js.